So, alright, herzlich willkommen zum Podcast der Entrepreneur University. Heute haben wir eine ganz besondere Folge und zwar aus folgendem Grund. Die Folge wird zum ersten Mal auf englischer Sprache sein, weil wir Chef Nicholson, den CMO von Vaynermedia, am Start haben. Und wir freuen uns super aus zwei Gründen, dass er am Start ist. Nummer 1, es wird unfassbar geiler Content sein. Und Grund 2, über ihn werden wir in unserem Podcast Gary pitchen. Ich weiß nicht, ob ihr es mitbekommen habt. Die beim Event dabei waren, werden es wissen. Wir haben Gary live bei uns on stage mit euch, über 2000 Leuten irgendwie gepitcht. Leider ohne Response. Wir sind seit Monaten, Wochen dran, ihn irgendwie vor die Flinte zu bekommen. Auch bis dato ohne Erfolg. Wir haben irgendwie kein Lebenszeichen. Jetzt versuchen wir es über sein CMO, ihn zumindest irgendwie gepitcht zu bekommen. Da mein Schulenglisch irgendwie auch nicht mehr so das Frischeste ist und wir hier einen nahezu Native Speaker bei uns an Bord haben, und zwar unseren CMO. Das passt irgendwie auch noch thematisch perfekt, also ein Perfect Fit. So viel kann ich dann doch Englisch. Perfect Fit kriege ich noch hin. Lukas, ich glaube, die meisten von euch kennen ihn auch aus Insta-Stories und Co. Ich will gar nicht so viel labern. Lukas hat uns den Arsch gerettet, sonst hätten wir kein gutes englischsprachiges Interview aufnehmen können. Vielleicht erzählst du ganz kurz, über was du mit Chef gesprochen hast.
Ja, also ich war auch ein bisschen aufgeregt, war mein allererster Podcast, aber war, glaube ich, cool, mega geiler Content. Ich habe im Podcast mit Jeff darüber gesprochen, wie er zu Vaynermedia gekommen ist, also so ein bisschen seine Origin-Story, wo er herkommt, auch eine krasse unternehmerische Vergangenheit. Dann, wie er eine Medienagentur gründen würde, wenn er jetzt nochmal anfangen würde, ohne Geld. Relativ geiler Walkthrough für diejenigen, die Agenturgeschäft irgendwie als spannend, interessant finden. Das sind, glaube ich, auch einige bei uns in der Zielgruppe. Und er hat uns auch noch ein Geheimnis erzählt, das er noch nie irgendwo öffentlich erzählt hat. Und so viel soll gesagt sein, meine Freunde, das ist auch noch ein richtig geiles Geheimnis. Viele von euch interessant, deswegen checkt die Podcast-Folge unbedingt aus.
Ja, und ganz wichtig, das Wichtigste, du hast ihn tatsächlich gepitcht, und wenn ihr hören wollt, was er darauf gesagt hat, dann unbedingt die Folge hören. Viel Spaß dabei und bis bald.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur University podcast. Come and listen to the stuff of what great personalities are made of. Learn from the biggest and best entrepreneurs, experts, and visionaries of our time. Greatness is not this wonderful, esoteric, God-given feature that only a special few of us will ever take. It's something that truly exists in all of us. So are you ready to become the best person you can be?
What's up, students of Entrepreneur University? Our guest for this podcast episode is Jeff Nicholson. Jeff is the Chief Media Officer at Vaynermedia, a full-service digital agency ran by entrepreneur and social media star Gary Vaynerchuck. In addition to that, Jeff is also the CEO of a company called Tracer that he founded together with Gary. We will talk about that later as well. Prior to joining Vaynermedia, Jeff had spent over 10 years in the digital advertising industry and led teams at Social Code and Lead Karma. In his position as the CMO of Vaynermedia, he's handling, I think, more than 200 people, if I'm correct. Mm-hmm. And Tracer already has quite a few employees itself. So we are very happy and honored to have you on our podcast. You're actually a first international guest. And we're happy to start with such a banger right away. Happy to have you on the show. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I should absolutely have you travel with me and do my intros because I feel very embarrassed now, but thank you so much for having me.
I don't think I did just in that intro, but let's get right into it. We're hearing now you're the CEO of a company that you founded together with Gary. You're the CMO of Vaynermedia, which is quite a big company by now. And we always wonder, when did you start? How did that happen? So maybe you could give us a little insight on your origin story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I joke a lot of the time. I think my business career started with my dad at a very young age. So my father used to scuba dive and actually catch lobsters with his hands. And I would get very upset when he would come home and give them away to his friends. Because I was at the grocery store one day and I looked up at the sign and it was, $8.99 a pound. So I started to do the math in my head around the price per pound and how many lobsters he caught. And I would measure all the lobsters on Sundays when he caught them. And I started to calculate, I'm like, Dad, you got like $350 and, and lobsters in the bag. You just gave it away. Like, let's start selling them. And for about 3 to 4 months, I harped on him to sell them. And then he allowed me to start selling a portion of all the bags that he brought home because he was so excited about me being kind of an entrepreneur. So I'd say my origin story originally was actually selling lobsters as like a 7-year-old. in my neighborhood. And then from there, honestly, I've always had the bug. I think Babson College was a big momentous kind of for me around, being exposed to global business and having a really rare opportunity to go to one of the best business schools in the United States. And then I went into private wealth and finance. And I learned a lot about the things that I didn't love. I do love the finance industry, but didn't really love the corporate environment and the management skills that I was taught there. And so I fell into really running ads on Google at a company called iProspect. And at the time, I think I was employee number 75 or 100, very small startup, but grew to be, it's a powerhouse now. It's a global entity that's been multiple times over in one of the larger agencies on the planet. But for me, it was an opportunity to really fall in love with advertising. I was a couple of weeks in, started running ads for a few retailers and quadrupled revenue predicated on simple landing page testing. And so the, infatuation with all the dynamics at play in advertising, whether it was landing page testing or creative and copywriting iterations or being the analytics lead or even be the account lead, you got to play all roles. And I was just enamored with the concept of being in control of their business. So from there, got really, really blessed and recruited by a kind of an MIT incubator group. Guy by the name of Dave Blunden, very smart individual, had formed a group in which they leveraged centralized technology in multiple lead verticals. So I worked on two different businesses. And the one I claimed, which you called earlier, was a business called Lead Karma. And that sold for roughly $30 million to a public company called Bankrate. And I built that business with my former boss. And that was probably a really crowning achievement for me in regards to understanding how to launch a business, grow a team, and capitalize on a market opportunity that we identified. And it really was the delta of advertising. People in the insurance space did not understand how to really truly capture leads and increase conversion funnel metrics at the same rate we did. So it was just honestly arbitrage in that regard. And that was really exciting to watch and be a part of. And then from there, came down to join one of my best friends and run Social Code. So I ran the advertising group at Social Code for almost 2 years, took it from 9 people to upwards of 75, and we became the largest vendor on Facebook in North America. So I was running campaigns for companies like Macy's and Progressive and some of the largest brands in the world, and really got a really deep look into how Fortune 100 companies operate at a macro level. And that was agency dynamics, investment strategies, talent acquisition, all encompassing. So that was revolutionary, huge opportunity. And then lastly, went from Social Code to Vayner. And Vayner, without a doubt, has been the greatest kind of career move I ever made, and absolutely the best opportunity that Gary ever gave me. So, kudos to Gary and thank you. And so I've been really lucky to grow the media department here and be the first ever and initial chief media officer and really build a successful media business inside of a creative agency. And then two, Gary, to the podcast's credit, entrepreneur, Gary allowed me to incubate a company while having a full-time job. And so Tracer was actually in incubation mode for 3 years. And I finally launched the business as a public entity, really because I felt the product was ready and we wanted to sign external clients. And so I have such a luxury and a privilege to both have the job I have and have a boss like Gary that allows me to do those types of things. So that's kind of my journey.
Okay, that's awesome. There's been a lot in there already, I think. We'll get to Tracer later on in that podcast. I think it's very interesting how your origin story is kind of similar to Gary's. I think the entrepreneurial background, not selling flowers, but lobsters at the age of 7. And then, you clearly have the expertise and the knowledge in marketing through everything you did, starting from Google AdWords, going through all that companies and building them. What I would find to be interesting is how did that transfer to Vaynermedia happen? Did you know Gary before you went to Vaynermedia?
Yeah, it's a interesting story. So we had a mutual friend, and I requested to meet him. I was looking for opportunities and really business partners and mentors or potential mentors that I could work with and for and continue to grow and learn myself. I'm only 35 as I am right now, so that was over 3 years ago. And for me, it was a really important thing about who you picked as a leader. So I requested to meet Gary. I was looking at offers at a lot of the platforms and large scale holding companies. And really, I just was enamored with what you just said. Gary and I just have a very similar thread as like a DNA, and that was intoxicating to me. For me, he made me feel normal, which is a rarity. I always felt out there as an entrepreneur and kind of pushing, and so very much felt normal with Gary and very comfortable with him, and was both impressed and excited about the potential for us to be together. So it was honestly just a really simple ask around, hey, let's spend time together. And we met, no joke, very Gary-esque. I think we met at 10:30 at a bar on the Upper East Side, and I was like, his fourth meeting that night, and then he was flying to Europe in like 6 hours. So kudos to Gary for taking the last night meeting. I mean, I think it worked out well.
I'm pretty sure he's happy with that decision as well.
I hope so. I'll try to get him on the show, and we'll see if he says yes. So.
Yeah, that would be awesome. We actually would love to have Gary on the show as well. Maybe he can give us a little insights on that story as well.
Actually, now that I said that, maybe we don't want him on the show. Maybe we don't.
Maybe he has a different version of how you got in there.
Yeah.
So you're now a part of Vaynermedia for 3 years?
Yep, just over 3. Hit my anniversary recently, which is exciting.
Congratulations on that. Vayner is an agency business, and we're connected in the startup world, and agency businesses are oftentimes not seen as the ideal business case, especially in the startup world, because they're not as scalable as, let's say, apps or digital products or anything. What's your take on that? Which advice would you give someone who wants to build a media agency, although it's not as favorable as other things?
I don't think it's more or less favorable. I think the first thing I would give advice to is build what you have an advantage in. So when you're going to build a business, if you do want to build a media agency, know why and understand how you're going to fit into the marketplace, what's your market position, and how are you going to differentiate. So I think I had a huge luxury and kind of advantage where I ran ads for a multitude of years, and then had a slew of friends and business associates and a variety of other people to lean on that would give me an advantage in this space if I was to launch a media company. And so I think my biggest advice is, number one, make sure you understand why you're doing it and what advantages and differentiators. My other advice is make sure that you really understand how you're going to sell your clientele and who you're selling to. To your point, I think it's operationally more inefficient, right? Like agencies only scale predicated on what? Volume of people to a degree. So typically that's not as exciting as tech multiples who, are app-based or dev-based and can be exponential revenue scales with 9x multiples. So I understand kind of that vein, but I also look at it as probably one of the greatest operational lessons you could have, because the ability to build a business like a media agency, for example, the elements of customer service, client management, talent management internally, multiple disciplines you need to actually even execute one service as simple as media execution, the partnerships you need across Google, Amazon, Facebook, etc., will teach you so many business technical skills, agnostic to advertising and marketing, but just business operationally. I actually think it's a great lesson. And I also don't think you need to be a huge agency either. I think people forget very quickly service businesses can be small, profitable, and very efficient. I ran multiple businesses back in my Lead Karma days on the side where you could run 1 to 3 person businesses that were agency oriented and run at 80% profit margins. So I think it's all about what you want. Do you want cash flow? Do you want a scalable business? Are you trying to execute? Are you just trying to learn?
So you say that media agencies can be very fun. 80% profit margin sounds.
I'm having a great time.
That's the most important thing. So know your why and know your craft, and then you can build a media agency that's fun and profitable. That's important as well in a business environment.
That's right.
You also said in an interview once that the sentence "data is king." What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think so. When you're looking at data around any behavior and understanding, what I always try to say is that you need backbone for your decision. So if you're going to make a decision predicated for a retail company and you want to target people and you're going to invest money on Facebook or Amazon or Pinterest or Google or whoever, well, why are you buying that audience or why are you buying that placement? Well, you're going to leverage data that's either you're using as a proxy or as, a scientific hypothesis, or it's actually a proven fact that this is a consistent element of intent signal for the person you want. So you're going to leverage that to, maximize your investment and hopefully become successful. So for me, everything is predicated on having a backbone and rationale of why you make a decision. And that data is going to drive that. Now that could be creative data, that could be audience data. I mean, it could be location data, it could be intent, it could be consumer behavior, anything. But I do try to stand on kind of the problem solving aspect of it. And then what do I have available to, basically come up with the best answer possible given what I have at my disposal.
All right. So your take on that is that data is really important. And a lot of times creative, especially in creative, people don't rely on data as much. So you say a big part of, you're the CMO, and a big part of that is analyzing the data you get from your creatives and your marketing.
Yeah, I think when you're the media officer, right? So people are entrusting me with their money. So my first philosophy is always I treat the money as if I was the CEO of the business and it was a family-owned business, because now I have the ultimate accountability for how I invest their dollars. So I always invest the dollars predicated on performance and reputation, right? I always want my clients to be happy that I invested where I did. I also want them to be confident that I did enough research on why we invested the way we did, right? Because they're entrusting me with their dollars and I'm charging them a service cost for that value. So for us, if we stay in that line, we're always aligned with our clients. And then for me, the next step becomes always being educated in the space on what is the best buy for my client and constantly pushing for that value for their benefit, right? I'm not looking to maximize margins for myself. I'm not, like old school tactics. If you're doing acquisition for fans, for example, is the easiest example, where you look at, okay, I could acquire a fan for 50 cents. Now, you were charging your client $1, and let's say the price goes up 60 cents. You could go to the client. They have no idea of the cost differential. You could go and say, hey, the price went up. I'm not charging you $5. Well, you just massively gouged your client. Now, will they know the difference? I don't know. It depends on their education level. Now, I'm not saying people shouldn't maximize profits, but I also think you should do it in a morally transparent way, or at least feel good that you're mutually getting, value.
Because you said you should know the place you invest at and you should have the best buy. But on the creative side, if you have a piece of like creative that obviously you produce at Vaynermedia, you have an own content production system, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you test, or do you even test, if the content you produce for, let's say, a really big client who's investing a lot of money, how do you test if that content works? Because, it's... No,
this is great. I love this question. I love this question. So we actually tag everything. So if you think about the consistent topic of Budweiser, okay? And Budweiser is a major advertiser in the space, happens to be a client of ours, so I use them as an example because I can talk about it. And they have multiple creative agencies, which is awesome. And they buy stuff from all of the different creative agencies. You can use it on TV and social and digital. And I think that's amazing. And they do a great job of testing content and its value in that placement. Mm-hmm. And so an oversimplified example is if you have 3 pieces of content and they're all produced by different agencies and they're all 30-second clips in which you're going to run on Facebook Watch, well, if you look at digestion patterns of each of the creative and you test them in the same thing and you're rotating as a fair apples-to-apples comparison, you could actually look at, okay, if all the creative costs the same, each was $100,000, well, then the video that was watched the most was the most efficient. It was the most effective purchase for your money because you paid the same price, yet that creative, more people wanted to watch for longer. So you would assume, and we'll make the hypotheses, that engaged content people digest more. So if 2 of the pieces people watch 5 seconds and then they drop, but one of the videos is so engaging everyone watches 28 seconds, and at second 27 Budweiser's logo's on the thing, well, typically they're probably going to yield a larger return for that, right? Yeah. Well, that environment, all you have to do is test and tag the multiple creative and then aggregate back and say, look, here's performance by creative agency. Well, that's extremely valuable to the advertiser because now they can start to equate apples to apples on a very fair, competitive landscape.
All right, but do you test that on your clients' accounts? Like, do you run ads on several projects at the same time on your clients' accounts?
Yeah.
Or do you have separate? All right.
Yeah, so I have no problem telling a client that the creative from another agency outperformed Vayner or vice versa. I have no opinion. The only opinion that matters is what the data tells you, right? So it's all about performance. If I'm it's very easy as the investment manager, right? So if I'm investing someone's $100 and one piece of creative is better for that $100, I'm picking the better creative. I could care less who made it, right? Like I don't care if we made it internally. I want the best thing for my client. And even the creative team, I think one of the coolest things about our culture, the creative team would support that. They would say, hey, we got to outperform. Let's make better creative.
Yeah. Awesome. That competitive company culture is very important as well.
Very important. I mean, and you guys know, especially you guys know this, like Gary preaches that. Like we are I don't want to use the word scrappy. We're a startup, right? We're still simple. Gary has the term like, don't be fancy unless you're fancy. Like we're not fancy. We're very much like, we know we're small in the space and a challenger agency, and we really appreciate every opportunity that we get. And I think, we're always trying to apply new areas of value and intelligence for our clients' benefit.
Okay, so Vaynermedia is not fancy. That's good to know. What else differentiates Vaynermedia from other companies you worked at or from other media agency businesses? What's different?
I'd say, well, first, obviously Gary and Stephen Ross and our kind of corporate leadership function give us a rare opportunity to not worry about public financials and much more predicate on learning and client interests. So I'd say that's number one. We've talked about that. I'd say number two is that we have all the major services that a brand needs under one roof. So when you think about a brand coming to market today, if you and I were to partner up and we're going to launch a brand tomorrow, we do believe that as a global marketing agency, we have all the services you'd need to fulfill that need. Mm-hmm. And so now, are some of those things bringing other third-party partners or vendors to the table? Absolutely. But we do fundamentally believe that we can be the central global marketing agency for any advertiser on the planet who wants to achieve success in today's landscape. And that really is a differentiator when you start to look at a lot of the other competitors we have are very siloed. They're either a creative agency or a media agency. They have a strategy company that's in their holding company, but a separate P&L. So we really try to look at it as like we're one family unit with all the services working together. And then I'd highlight on the media side a little bit. I think we're kind of the exact opposite of most of the agencies out in the space. We're transparent to a fault. We contractually obligate that you own your own data. We don't play territory on third-party value, so everything's passed through on a technology cost that, I'm not going to margin up something that I didn't add value to. And then we're practitioners. We buy everything internally, natively on the platforms to have maximum touch points of what the true value is in the marketplace, and making sure that we're honestly consolidating job functions and eliminating supply chain inefficiencies. So I kind of call it savage frugality on the benefit of our clients, and we try to deploy that methodology across the company. And I think it's a very big difference from how a lot of the other media agencies invest. We won't do commercial deals up front either. I won't put my position where I have to choose my own margin outside my clients. I always have to choose them first. Okay, so you're saying that Vaynermedia is in a good position to be a market leader in the agency business because being a full service agency. Now let's get deeper into that. Let's say I wanted to found a media agency. I know the start was probably a lot different than Vaynermedia, but what is the better strategic approach if you want to found an agency? Offering all services up front from the beginning, being a full service agency like Vaynermedia is, or offering them, giving the jobs to freelancers or third-party companies, putting your margin on that, which is obviously not as good for the client, or start with one specific service you can do in-house and then expand from there if you have the financial and the knowledge background to build your skills in other service areas. So I don't think there's one right answer. I'd say there's, the high level macros. If you look at, I hate to even use them, but Martin Sorrell, like the large scale holding companies were financial M&A. So if you go large scale PE, you can piece together a lot of the services you need and come out and be a significant player. I would call out, if you think about a company called Elite SEO, actually CEO is a friend of a friend and really great guy. They partnered with a PE firm and they've bought a social arm, an email arm, an Amazon arm, and they are trying to piece together, I call it the transformer approach, right? I don't know if you guys, you make the transformer approach and they piece together all the machine and all of a sudden you have a robot, right? And they're trying to bring all the pieces that they believe in today's marketing environment, they need to be successful against the competition. Very smart. That's an M&A PE-backed move. You can also go the exact opposite, which is what I went, which is play single service strength predicated on knowledge delta and talent delta, right, with a core group of people, and grow off of that reputation as a market position. So I was, one of the market leaders in kind of social and digital execution, leveraged that into, starting to grow a team inside of an agency and built a reputation with platform and, external partners that we knew what we were doing. And as you build that momentum, if you maintain that and that customer service and that value, then more people will come ask for your service. And so very different, right? One is like, hey, full M&A, mergers, acquisitions, and integrating cultures. Other is like mom and pop startup and grind it up from the bottom and then, slowly grow multiple services. I don't think either's right. I think you have to play the hand that you have. So if you're a person who doesn't have, an M&A background or access to funds or the ability to really piece those things together, well, that's not an option for you, right? So I would probably predicate on what are the 10 services you think an agency needs, in today's environment, and pick the one you're best at and start with that and win a couple of clients and build a case study and a reputation and then grow from there.
Okay, you already gave the answer to my next question, because that would have been, how would you build a media agency right now if you had $0 in your bank account and no network whatsoever? But I think you gave us a very
I would do consulting, no joke. I would get in. My only additional advice would be do consulting, right, to create a revenue stream by adding value to a client and then literally translate that client into your first agency client.
Do you, if you say you would do consulting, for doing consulting, you need to have some kind of background and some kind of proof that allows you to be a consultant. With you, obviously, you have that proof.
Untrue. I know you're a Gary fan. How often does Gary say what? Work for free. Consultants don't have to get paid. My value is if you go into a business and you consult for a business and you add value to them, you instantly have credibility. There are a variety of kids or adults on my team. They're just a lot younger than me. I'm an old man. And they could, within 2 weeks of graduating college, if I taught them a week of data manipulation, they could go and do consulting and have massive improvements to a lot of brands. So I think people, forget what value means. I also think that there's a lot of intelligent, raw kind of power in the world that people can just throw at a problem and learn and grow. So I would just say, if you don't get into a business and add value and have a case study to stand on, it's chicken and the egg with credibility. You got to earn it somehow.
Yeah. Okay. So your approach is to work for free and learn the craft and the skills and then build from then on.
Or get paid to learn. I mean, my preference is find a job that someone would pay you to learn and then go leverage that. But
yeah. We actually say that quite a lot to our audience, that they should just get into the startups, get into where the magic happens, and get as close as possible to the strategic heads of the companies or the organizations to learn the craft, learn the skills, get the network, and then build from then on.
100%. I mean, my boss at Lead Karma, Akshay Patel, and he would have no problem with me saying this, is a close friend, was a great mentor and boss. But he was probably that for me, and early in my career. Gary, absolutely now. But Akshay was the opportunity for learn how to run a business, right? Just tactically, from humans to operations to technology to process. How do you learn to run a business and be a leader? You need access to that. You have to watch that. You have to practice that. And so for me, it was, working with him, watching, learning, asking questions, probably bugging the shit out of him too much for many I really appreciated that, and it gave me the opportunity to do that when I left him. So that was huge for me.
All right, awesome. So let's, before moving on to your job at Tracer and what you do with Tracer, one question to conclude the Vaynermedia part. You already gave the answer as well, kind of, when you said that you should just test where you get the most for your buck. But do you have a predication on what kind of mix you recommend in digital marketing? What works right now? Is there anything that works better than other things? I know Gary still always says, put your money in Facebook ads. But what's your take on that as a CMO?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of great platforms out there and places to spend your money. I think the number one advice I always give people is you have to win on the winners, right? It's very easy, even as a consumer, right, looking at the stock market and the platforms and who's winning, right? So when you start to look at Amazon and Google and Facebook, they are the dominant players in the space. And so my number one advice is win there, because if you win there and you have the skills that are applicable to the major platforms and investment vehicles on the planet, you're going to have a pretty good chance of success. And then I would think about who do you value outside of those players that's going to either bring value to you or consumers or brands, such as a Pinterest, right? Understanding that Pinterest is visual search and there's a lot of discovery, right? If I'm a home decor brand and I want to launch, I might be very heavy in Pinterest up front and understand that that could be universally beneficial to my brand. So I think the other piece is business context. So I think the first one you have to do is win on the winners. And the second one to understand is you understand the unique business context of what you're trying to achieve and make sure you win on those players as well.
Win on the winners and business context. That's a very good conclusion of what you do at Vaynermedia. Now let's shift over to Tracer. Obviously, we mentioned it earlier. You're the CEO of the company. You started it together with Gary and another business partner. And I hope I'm right with this one. Tracer is basically a data aggregation platform measuring media efficiencies and creatives. I saw that you stated that a lot of marketers, even nowadays, use Microsoft Excel to analyze their data, and Tracer is basically an alternative to that, where you can integrate a lot of platforms, a lot of tools, and analyze that. How was it like to co-found the company with Gary? Obviously, you have been friends for a longer period of time, but how was it for you? Did he get involved too much? Because obviously you're the CEO, or did he give you the freedom?
Yeah, so there's two things. One, my co-founder was Leighton Welsh, so I want to give him credit. He's a super genius, as I call him. Very smart guy, one of my best friends. But he's my CTO, so he's kind of the manufacturing to the product. Gary is also definitely a co-founder and also the one who really funded the investment. So it's been great doing it with the three of us. I think the funnest thing about Gary is he really wants to do whatever he can add value and never stand in your way. So he's given me more respect and appreciation for what I'm trying to build and what I'm trying to do than anyone I've ever had in my career. And so he's the best business partner and investor and co-founder probably on the planet in that regard. I think the other thing you have to appreciate with Gary is like he's a force of nature, as I call it. So when you think about having his backing and his support in our industry, for me, is just, that's unheard of. So it's hugely beneficial and appreciated, and I feel very, very lucky. So
it's a benefit to have Gary as a business partner, even with his, he has a big personal brand, and that obviously can open a lot of doors and help you with the business. But is it not like sometimes, you're always in the shade of someone
no. Yes. See, Gary and I talk about this a lot. Like, for me, everybody wants different things, right? Like, I always tell Gary that I don't want to be him and he doesn't want to be me. I probably am closer with Gary than most. I'm very proud of him. I'm impressed by him. And so for me, it's all positive, no negative. I'd say honestly, the thing I would love people to know about Gary is he's very valuable around business advice and market position more than anyone could ever understand. So, you go to him and ask him questions, and he's extremely savvy about how we, position the company and who we take on as clients and what we do. And I think that, he's very underappreciated and underestimated.
All right, awesome. Good answer. Gary's probably happy to hear that. No, joking. I honestly think...
No, send him this. I'm just going to,
Yeah. It's funny. I've been talking to one of the top business coaches in Germany, also really, really big audience. And he said, when we asked him what podcasts he listens to, he said, the only thing I'm listening to is the Gary Vee audio experience. So Gary's influence in Germany in the scene is as high as it can be. I don't know any German-speaking, business guru that has as much leverage and credibility as Gary has. So now let's get back into Tracer. If I research correctly, Tracer is not part of VaynerX anymore.
So VaynerX is what we call our portfolio company. Mm-hmm. So that holds all of the companies underneath. So VaynerX is the company which Gary and Ross own. And that is our kind of portfolio entity. And then that holds VaynerMedia, Gallery Media Group, and Tracer. So there's three current entities underneath that. And just for clarity, obviously VaynerMedia is the agency. Gallery Media Group's our publishing arm. So that includes the brands Pure Wow, 1:37 p.m., and there will be other launches as well. And then Tracer, obviously, is the tech company. So there's three entities underneath the VaynerX umbrella.
All right. So you're still an entity of VaynerX, but you're not as connected with VaynerMedia as you've been, because you're not exclusively a platform for Vayner anymore, and you're taking in other agency clients.
Yes, and which we've already signed. So we signed officially as of the other day, Hawk Media, which is an agency in LA. CEO, I'll give him a shout out. Eric is a fantastic guy and our first official external client. And we're starting an onboarding in 3 weeks, which is really exciting.
How many more clients do you plan on taking? And does that not cripple VaynerMedia as an agency? If you provide your obviously or hopefully well and good service to other agencies?
Yeah, so there's two things. One, it doesn't. So, obviously there's going to be an opportunity for Vayner to continuously have alpha access to the platform, and they will always be kind of the cutting edge product users of the roadmap, and that's the advantage of being the sister company. And there's obviously cost benefits as well as being in the same office. But I would say that it doesn't. Gary and I have talked about this quite a bit. If we were an external company, we would want to sell to everybody and add value. And so I'm going to take on several clients, but we have a very different philosophy for Tracer than a lot of other SaaS companies. I don't want to sell mass market SaaS to everyone and cover the industry. What I want to do is add value to my partners. So we'll probably only pick, I'd say 5 to 6 clients that we'll take on within the next year. But we will actively add value to them in all aspects. So data aggregation, operational efficiencies, BI intelligence, and really want to be a strategic partner for our large scale clients. So we want to make sure that we have a good breadth of clients as well. So I'm going to do a few agencies. We'll probably do a few publishers and a few direct brands and have a good representation of the industry. But we're much more focused on building a great product and adding value to the clients that we do have.
All right. So your vision and your plan with Tracer is not to be that overall market leader that everyone uses, but you want to be like a very good platform for a special amount of agencies you work with.
That's right.
All right. Now let's get back to your person. We've talked about VaynerMedia and we've talked about Trace a lot. Now we would also like to know something about you and get some more background on you. We have some quick questions that you can answer in just a sentence.
All right.
Are you down? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. All right. First question. What is the first thing you do when you come to the office?
I have a water and a coffee.
Coffee is real important. All right. What are you scared of?
Spiders.
Okay. Which object did you buy for less than $100 that changed your life?
Ooh. What did I buy for $100 that changed my life? A Post-it note.
A Post-it note. What was on it?
I wrote myself a message, stuck it on my mirror, and it changed my life. And that cost like $2.
Do you want to share with us what that message was, or?
Sure, next time I come back on. How about that?
All right. I'll take your word for it. Next question. How many phone numbers do you have in your contact, approximately?
Oh, thousands.
Thousands. All right. How often do you see and talk to Gary?
Daily.
How many hours do you work each day? You already answered that. So I guess from 9 to 9 is a pretty fair answer on that. How many books have you read? Estimated.
This year, 1.
That's probably more than Gary has read, so...
That's exactly 1 more than Gary's read, so...
All right. Which decision...
That's an embarrassing answer, since my wife is an English teacher and she reads probably 1 book a day, so...
Well, Gary always says he has written more books than he's read, and it's
totally true.
That's such a badass answer for that question.
It is. I do not have that badass answer. I'll work on that, though.
Well, you have the practical background and the knowledge in marketing. I guess that works, except writing a book. Which decision was your hardest but brought the best outcome?
I would say kind of the last career change I made, really making a significant shift and leaving my former firm and coming to Vayner was the best career choice and one of the hardest I ever made.
Okay, so coming to Vayner was the best choice you ever made. So we'll probably see you working at Vayner for a lot more years to come.
Yeah. I have no desire to leave. It was, I loved my last firm and my team was phenomenal. I had some of the greatest teammates and employees and people on my last team. So that was extremely difficult for me in a very personal business. So that was tough. But joining Vayner has been eye-opening and phenomenal experience that I would never trade for anything.
Awesome. Tell us something you never told anyone before. Publicly.
Wow. Tell you something that I haven't told anyone publicly. Okay. I know what Marek. So I hired a content producer. So D-Rock, D-Rock for Gary. I hired one. His name is Marek. I have not said that publicly in front of anybody outside of my team who knows because he's here today. And I'm terrified to do content. But Gary challenged me. I think I have a responsibility to do it, to educate people. So it's honestly why I'm trying to do this with you and why I hired Marek. So that's something that nobody knows, and I am fucking terrified.
Awesome. So that's something really valuable. So you're starting to become the next Gary V or the second Gary V in Vaynermedia, and we have the honor to have you on the show prior to the launch of your personal brand.
Yes. So that's going to be coming out. I'm going to start putting out more content. So I'll do the shout out. My Instagram handle is Nicholson.
We'll tag it in the show notes below.
Yeah, please follow me. I would appreciate it. But you'll see a lot more content. Gary and I are going to have a very different style, but really trying to take the lessons that he's taught me and that I've seen him kind of learn from and add my own flair to it. So I want to do really marketing and advertising education. So really bringing value to your point around my tactical experiences. And then I want to do a lot around education. I'm very passionate about teaching young people the career opportunities they have, about the business world and the things that they can do, and really just giving back to the opportunities that I got lucky enough to get. And so it'll be a lot of things focused on that and some cool, hopefully some cool product integration things. I have some companies that I'm friends with, so I want to walk through the funnel of how you purchase a product, but through my eyes, and talk about it so people can think about, what is the brand experience for consumer and what brand should be thinking about in today's marketplace. So I thought it'd be pretty cool, and hopefully everybody else does too. So
that's an interesting take, and we're happy to see that personal brand happen. I guess you probably have a lot of German friends right from the start. We'll put all the links in the show notes below, Instagram, Facebook, whatever you like. Just send it to us and we'll put it in the show notes. And for the community, check out Jeff. I'm pretty sure you can learn a lot. I'll probably learn a lot. So I'm looking forward to that. The last question we have for you, I'm kind of sad that our interview is already almost over. It's been an honor and a joy. So last year at our event, we pitched Gary in front of 2,000 people. We made a pitch video and sent it to him. And the coming year, 2019, we're planning on doing the biggest event in Europe in that entrepreneurship scene. We tried to reach out to Gary. It was not as successful. How could we pitch Gary as a speaker for our event, and how can you help us to do so? Obviously, you will be a great speaker for the event as well. We would love to have you both on board.
I would love to be there, and hopefully I will make that work. But again, if happy to attend if I can add value. Let me get back to you. But what I will do this, I will publicly tag him with you on a post in the near future to see if I can get his attention. So at least I get you some awareness, and we'll see, and we'll go from there. How about that?
That sounds awesome. Thanks so much already, and block the 27th and 28th of April 2019 if you can, and we'd love to have you on board.
I look forward to it. I'll confirm soon. I'll shoot you an email, and I really appreciate the opportunity today and the opportunities in the future. And if I can be of any service to you guys, please let me know.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. It's been an honor and the joy, the interview, and I hope for the community, everybody check out Jeff's profiles. This is actually the first episode we did in English, so I hope everyone could understand it.
It was fantastic. First of all, English is great. And again, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be the first English-speaking person, and look forward to talking to you guys again.
Thank you for spending your time with us. Always remember, don't talk about your goals anymore. Make them reality. It doesn't matter what happened yesterday. What's important is what happens now. So go out and make your dreams come true.